Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Geeked Out. My name is Kyle,
And I'm on.
and this week we decided to stay in the action cop genre and we watched Exit Wounds. This movie was originally released on March 16th of 2001. It was written by Ed Horowitz and Richard DeVidio. I probably got that name wrong, but no big deal. It was based, get a load of this, it was based on a book of the same name written by John Westerman. If you picked the movie, would you have picked this one to have been based on a book?
No,
I was shocked
no,
when I
no.
read that today.
I mean, I guess when you think about it, it
But it's
in
such a
theory kind
basic
of
story.
it would make for a good book. If it has the elements for a good book if handed to a better, writer.
Well, a book you could flesh out a lot more. I mean, we'll get into it, but
Yeah, exactly.
everything in this movie is so surface level. There's no depth to it. So I guess if you had a book, 200, 200 odd pages, I guess you could get some decent legs on a story like this. But yeah, I and
You don't have that time.
the only thing I was able to find about that, I didn't look too far into the actual book itself, but I believe it said that the book was based in Long Island instead of the film is set in Detroit. But I don't
Yeah.
know how closely the book resembles the movie. I'm not really sure. I didn't look too far into that aspect.
Yeah.
But the movie was directed by Andrea Barkowiak, who I'm going to go on record right now and say that this man has only directed 3 movies. We might end up doing all 3 of these. I would like to say we're going to do at least 2 of them for sure.
Is one of them Romeo Must Die?
Yes, it is.
See, for a second,
You want to know? Hold on. You want to know what the third one is?
wait a minute, let me think.
It's a movie that I have.
Is Steven Seagal in it?
No, it's a
Damn.
movie that I have talked to you
Who's in
about
it?
for
Who's in it?
Carl Urban, Rosamund Pike, Dwayne Johnson,
Oh, Doom. That
Doom,
makes
baby.
sense. That makes sense, actually.
The 3
They're all
movies this man has
terrible films.
directed are Exit Wounds, Doom, and Romeo Must Die.
He's got
Three,
2 hits on his hands. One of
dude, they're
them,
3
Doom.
horrible movies, but absolute bangers to watch.
I mean, I can definitely say that about Exit Wounds and Romeo Must Die. Doom I have not seen since I only think I've only ever seen it once in my life.
I used
So
to own that movie.
that'll tell you how I feel about that movie. Then,
I used to own Doom. That's a huge. You and I recently were talking about guilty pleasure movies.
uh,
That used to be a big guilty pleasure movie for me.
uh,
And a lot
no.
of it, I like Dwayne Johnson. He's not good in it, but the draw for me is I'm a big Carl Urban fan.
But when Dwayne The Rock Johnson, that's what I'm calling him for this movie.
I don't even think he
He,
was Dwayne Johnson. I think he was just The Rock at that time.
yeah, but like when he was turning evil, it was, I don't know, I just remember it being cringy as hell when I watched it.
Oh, I'm pretty
Something
sure it
about it
is.
just rubbed me the wrong way. I just didn't I was not oh I was just good with it after seeing it the
Oh,
first time,
I'm
only time.
pretty sure it is cringy and really really bad to watch. But
He can sell being a villain in the WWE, but when it comes to on the screen as a horror villain, at that time it didn't hit. And but I did
I
appreciate the first person kill scene in that movie.
that was that movie was. I mean, like I said, we will probably will do this movie in the future and we'll
That's
talk
like the
about this
only thing I
more.
really remember. Only a couple things I remember that
Yeah,
of
well,
that
I mean,
movie.
we'll probably talk
Oh,
about this more at length when we do the movie one day in the future. But that movie was
yeah.
built around that whole scene. Like when that movie was coming out, it was like, yeah, it's a movie with The Rock based on a video game, and you get like a first person shooter scene in the movie, and everybody was like, fuck, I gotta see this.
Mm-hmm.
myself included. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was right there for it.
Yeah, I'll rewatch it. It's, I'm sure I'll have a different view about it, or maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. But do you know? Did you look at who was the producer of this movie?
I did. Joel Silver himself returns.
Oh,
There seems to be a trend
back to
here.
back, back to back. Yeah, I thought that was interesting as hell, man. I was like, oh, look at that! What a coincidence. The man knows a good action movie, and when it comes to action movies and Steven Seagal, safe to say this is probably one of his best, especially towards the older era of Steven
Dude,
Seagal.
I am not. So I will preface this by saying I am not a Steven Seagal fan whatsoever.
Me neither. Besides this movie, this one I'm kind of a fan
Yeah, this is
of
the
him
only Seagal movie
in
I like.
this movie.
This
This
is the
one
only
in this one and uh okay, there's another one actually.
with Ja
Pretty
Rule,
yeah.
Half Past Dead.
Yes.
I've actually never
Yes.
seen that.
That one's actually it's horrendous, but it's got some entertaining moments to it. For sure, especially Ja Rule getting his ass beat in almost every scene that
I,
he's
I'm
in fighting.
I'm down for watching that.
Yeah, no, it's worth the watch.
Dude, I am look as we're talking right now, I am just looking at Joel Silver's producer filmography, and my God, this man has put out some bangers. He's got the first two diehards, Roadhouse, Action Jackson, which we did last week, Predator, at least the first two Lethal Weapons, the last Boy Scout, yeah, Lethal Weapon 3, Demolition Man, Richie Rich. Like, this guy just,
Damn.
I like, this is insane what I'm looking at right
He
here.
did Rich Rich?
He did. He was a producer of Richie Rich. Go, go
Macaulay
figure that.
Culkin?
Go figure that. The man who produced some of the 80s biggest action movies produces a movie about the world's richest fucking snot-nosed kid.
That movie hit though.
As a kid, yeah. Dude, he
Hell yeah.
produced The Matrix.
God damn you,
I am
Culkin.
learning all kinds of stuff right now.
Oh yeah. I knew of the man, but I just didn't know of all of the hits that he's attached to. It's crazy.
Yeah, like you say, I've heard the name many times, and even in other podcasts, I've heard like, oh, Joel Silver produced this, and it was just kind of like, okay, and it just went over my head. I never really thought much of it, but fuck, now looking at it, and all these titles are showing up in front of me. It's like, wow, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the man had a lot of bangers. A lot of top tier, a lot of bottom tier, but almost everyone is people find a lot of enjoyment out of them,
For sure.
It's good. That's a lot. It's an impressive list of movies,
Absolutely it is. But
and he kind of shaped the way an action movie is kind of even put together
yeah,
just by the sheer fact of how many that he's done. A lot of them kind of have a lot of the same feel if you really start to pay attention, and a lot of the
yeah,
tropes,
I
you
mean,
know.
yeah, he could be responsible for many good things and probably some of the bad things, the negative tropes with when it comes to action movies. But I mean, either way, I think that's a real testament to him and his career and what he's done.
For sure.
But getting back to this movie, I will say that we'll go back to it. So this movie is starring, as we've said, Steven Seagal, DMX, Isaiah Washington, Anthony Anderson, Michael Jai White, and of course the return, another movie 2 weeks in a row of Bill Duke. Actually, that might be three movies in a row. with Bill Duke.
This motherfucker just creeping in our. We should just get him on the podcast for the next one. So I'm sure
Uh,
he'll be in it
that
at some
would,
capacity.
dude, if I could ever talk to Bill Duke, that would be fantastic.
I don't know, man. I don't. I hope his outside personality has a lot more energy because he just, especially in this movie, he just looked like he needed a nap.
Yeah, this movie he looks real
Motherfucker needed a nap,
real curmudgeon-y.
and he wasn't even in the movie that long. He must
No,
have. That's probably why he wasn't in the movie until like from the beginning, and then you didn't really see him to the end. I think he just took a real big nap.
it was almost just like I don't want to be here, so you've got me for a day. Let's film
Oh yeah,
what
for
we
sure.
can, and I'm gonna look pissed off the entire time.
Oh yeah. I don't think the man has ever not looked tired and pissed off at the same time.
Yeah.
But amazing, he's goated, ever since he was part of the cast of Predator. If you're in the cast of Predator, you're goated as an actor to me,
Especially in the action genre.
in the action genre, for sure.
But yeah, for this movie, it had a 5.6 out of 10 rating on IMDb. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a critic score of 33% and an audience score of 45%, making this movie rotten. And I understand why it is, but we'll get to that when we do. For the box office for this movie, it had a budget of $33 million, and worldwide it grossed just under $80 million. So that's a decent return for '01. I think a lot of it was just the sheer factor of uh, just going to see fights and shit blow up. Like, I don't think anybody was going to this movie expecting a good story or
No,
um,
it's a
an
Steven
in-depth
Seagal movie.
script.
No, at this point, you knew what you were getting into going into a Steven Seagal starring movie, and it wasn't anything close to being an Oscar-worthy film.
It's
You
barely
knew
an
you were,
MTV. It's barely an MTV Movie Awards worthy film.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, definitely at this point of his career, I think this was the movie that was supposed to like revitalize his career. I think this was the one that
It
he actually was trying.
it did not work.
No,
Now,
unfortunately.
like I said, I enjoy this movie, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. I have a soft spot for this movie personally, but I can understand why the vast majority of people aren't big fans of it. But with that, I'm going to ask you, when did you first come across this movie? Did you see this in theaters?
I don't think so.
No,
Probably either if I
Blockbuster.
didn't rent this, because most movies back then, if I didn't see them in the theaters, I got them from Blockbuster for sure, or
Yeah.
Rogers Video here in Canada.
Oh God, I
Um,
remember Rogers.
right? So either or, yeah, I think it was definitely a rental pickup.
Okay, I actually did. I was lucky enough to see this movie in theaters. Which I don't know how that would have been possible because I gotta believe this movie was rated R. I actually haven't looked up what it was rated, but there is
Yeah,
nudity in
because
this movie. There's swearing. There's all kinds of blood and violence. I gotta believe this movie was rated R. I'm gonna as
is
we're
there more
talking
than
now, I'm really
one?
curious.
Is there more than one scene of nudity?
Yes, there is.
Then yeah,
There there
'cause I think
is this strip club, and then there's also the club that Anthony Anderson owns with the girls that are
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
painting on one another.
'Cause I think PG-13 you can get away with one scene, but if you multiple, I think yeah, R for sure, especially when there's blood. Was there blood? A lot of blood in this movie? I don't think so.
I probably wouldn't say a lot, but there definitely was blood.
The people getting shot, you could see the
Yeah, so it says
blood.
Canada would have been we don't use rated R in Canada for those of you listening who are unaware of this. So it would have been rated 18A. But yeah, I vividly now this is a I don't know why, but I vividly remember going to see this movie my uncle took my brother and I to go see this. So I'm guessing that's the only way we were let in because he would
Yeah.
have bought our tickets. But
Yeah.
and don't ask me why I know, but this movie must have been in theaters for a couple of months because, as I say, I have a vivid memory of being on the way to the movie theater, and my uncle's driving the car, and if you remember the band Stained, they had just come out with the song
Um,
Outside, and it came
sure.
on the radio, and I just remember my uncle getting so excited to listen to this song that we actually had to sit in the car and wait until the song ended before we could go into the theater.
Goodness gracious.
Why that memory sticks in my head when it comes to this movie, I don't know. But as soon as I turned the movie on, I was like, "Oh yeah, I fucking remember that." It was like a lightning bolt into my head.
Hmm. Sometimes those memories just get stored like that. Yeah, you just don't know the trigger.
Yeah. And I will say I loved this movie in theaters. I walked out just fucking jacked from this movie. Then again, I
Really?
was oh dude, I was 13.
Did you
So
feel
like
like
imagine
samurai sword and people with
with paper
and
cutters,
paper
fabric
cutter
cutters. Dude,
doing an upside down
I
uppercut?
love that scene.
That's
That was a trailer scene right there.
that was in the trailer. Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
yeah, I walked out of this theater going, that movie was amazing. Everybody's got to see it. And then now looking back on it, what, 23 years later, 22 years later, I'm like, that was pretty good. Nowhere near what I
Because,
thought when I was 13.
because the fight scenes and the action are very well done. It's just everything else that's, you know,
Yeah, it's everything in between.
kind of bad.
But again, think about it. Like as a 13-year-old, I was going to see basically a rated R movie. I didn't care what it was about. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to a rated R movie. Like, hell yeah, let's go.
And yeah, your perceptions changed already from that.
So
Yeah.
I'll let, as we do every week, let all our listeners know we're going to be spoiling this movie, even though, like I said, it's 23 years old. So if you don't want it spoiled, well, I guess you should have watched the movie before you listen to the podcast. But this movie is basically about a Detroit cop named Orrin Boyd, who, after being punished by his captain with a transfer to Detroit's worst precinct, he stumbles onto a web of police corruption. After that, he partners with a couple of very unlikely civilian allies and launches a war against the corruption to take them
Yeah.
down from the inside.
Okay. That sounds like a good book.
You know what? When I read it that way, it really does sound a lot more compelling than what the movie makes it out to be.
Yeah. But hey, I'm still glad we got this this movie here. This heaping pile of awesomeness.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I enjoy this movie. As I said,
Oh yeah.
I probably enjoyed it a lot more when I was younger, but it's still definitely fun. It's a fun ride to go on.
Oh
I
yeah. If you're a
mean,
teenage if you were a teenage boy in the early 2000s, this definitely was a movie that yeah, after seeing you would definitely would praise it more than an adult seeing it at that time.
oh, 100%.
But still, it's still even rewatching it, like the entertainment value is very high to
I
me.
mean, even look at if if you watch this movie, the first action scene on the bridge that takes place what 5 6 minutes into the movie, it's fucking crazy. It's batshit. You've got automatic gunfire and explosions and a helicopter and like
You got
and you're within the
dumb as
first
shit
few
cops.
minutes.
Yeah, you got it feels like an 80s action movie, to be honest.
A lot of
Some
it does.
right? Well, it's just like the opening for sure, especially with like the cops, because some of the cops are dumb as hell. Like the one scene where they're like crashing into each other in the
Oh yeah.
motorcycle, or when the one cop just couldn't get out of the way of that incoming car, even though he had ample time
Well,
to just jump out of the way.
because he kept firing his gun at it. But dude, that the fact that they had a camera set up and they used a dummy and it looked like he actually got hit because like the body
When
comes
you're
at the camera.
yeah, when you're a kid watching it in the theater, for the first time, yeah, you definitely would think, "Oh, damn, that was that a real person?" But when you go back and rewatch it and that slow it down a little bit, yeah, it's obviously a dummy. But this is probably one of two scenes where they used a dummy very effectively, which I very, very much appreciated. Because
Yeah, I like
a lot of action movies do not do that cut with the dummy well, and it leads to some unnecessary hilarious moments in other action movies.
I mean there are some hilarious moments in this movie.
Oh
I
yeah,
I mean
not
let me
involving dummies.
I mean let's just get it. He blows up a helicopter with an automatic handgun.
Dude, it was like a fucking semi-automatic or fully automatic pistol that he was pulling it, and you could see that he was shooting single rounds, but the sound effect and the damage he was causing on the helicopter would lead to you, I guess, assuming that it was an automatic gun. It was weird, but I love it.
Well,
Yeah, it was.
what was weird to me in this opening scene is so you've got these they call them a militant group that basically it's an assault like an assassination attempt on the vice president who's in Detroit giving a speech about gun violence or something. And you see these cops who are part of the motorcade and they put little little bombs basically on vehicles that are in the motorcade and then they put a smoke bomb on the vice president's car. As I'm watching it, I'm like, if they must have been planning on like kidnapping him because if you wanted to try and kill him, just put one of those bombs on the fucking car.
True.
Like,
Maybe they
and
were just
and that's the
planning
thing.
on
They never you never know what their plan is because this whole scene is so inconsequential. It's basically just a setup that is for him to get um like I say, to get he gets punished because of it and then gets transferred. So that's the only reason this scene exists. So you don't need or get any of that backstory or why they did what they did or anything like that.
which is weird because didn't he save the vice president's life? And it seems like he got punished for it.
I thought the same thing because it's like, oh, all the cops were ordered not to go on the bridge because these attackers were dressed as police, so they wouldn't know who who to trust.
Hmm.
Which I understand. So they're like, let Secret Service handle it, but it's like Secret Service wasn't getting the job done, so he shows up, saves the guy's life, which coincidentally he does by throwing him over off the bridge into the water, which I laughed pretty hard at. But he saves the vice president of the United States life, and he gets punished and transferred to the worst precinct in all of Detroit.
It's like, okay, that's what we're
and
doing.
and he's basically told if I could fire you, I would.
Right? He's like, all right. I mean, I was the only one to get the job done saving the vice president's life. All right. I mean, in most movies, he would get a promotion, but okay.
You would
So
think.
let's go. We're just going with it. All right. I'll accept it.
And I like that immediately when he shows up to his new precinct, he runs into Jill Hennessy, who I gotta be honest, is looking pretty good in this movie. I don't really know her from many things, but I remember her from that show Crossing Jordan, which I never watched. I just saw a lot of commercials for it on TV.
Yeah, yeah, I remember those Crossing Jordan commercials, and they were just trying to push that show upon the audience so much.
To this day, I couldn't tell you if the show was about crossing the country Jordan or if her name was Jordan. I have no idea.
I don't know what yeah, exactly. Was it a freaking cop procedural? Was it a doctor show? I don't know. I know Jordan was crossing something, or
Yeah,
something was crossing Jordan.
I have no idea.
Oh.
But upon meeting her, he asks where the commander's office. It's a fun joke where, oh, where's the commander's office? And she's like, I'll show you. And as they're walking, he's like, oh, the commander, whoever's in charge here, has really done a piss poor job. Like he's kind of basically saying like this is a shithole and all this other stuff. And they walk into the office, and she just slowly walks behind the desk, like, yeah, I'm the commander. And
Like, ooh, yeah,
he's
yeah.
like, can we start over? And she's like, I don't think so. Like
Mm,
you can tell right away that she knows who she's dealing with, and she's heard enough about his reputation.
of
And
course, yeah. It was, you know, it's made for these type of movies, but it was well played. It was played out decent.
it was definitely put, and I like that. I like that she immediately says to him, like, I'm sending you to anger management because clearly you have issues, which sets up a fucking crazy, I don't even know if I'd call it a cameo, but the existence of one of the cast members in this movie. When he goes to this anger management class, you meet fucking Tom Arnold, who I can't believe is a character in this movie. And
Yeah, I
he's
think he was trying to
insane.
have. I think much like Steven Seagal, I think he was trying to make this movie kind of like another launch pad to a second chance with Hollywood. And sprinkled in small bits, sorry, small little bits there. I don't mind Tom Arnold, but yeah, given when you put too much screen on him, he kind of gets annoying.
No, I don't mind him either. I mean, I didn't mind him in this movie, and I mean, I liked him even in True Lies. But again, it's the same thing. He's such a small supporting character that he plays, and that's where he shines, I think.
Yeah, kind of just sprinkled in like a nice, a good sidekick.
Yeah, I would, I would be willing to say that he outacts Seagal in this movie.
Which it's not really hard to, especially with the effort that he was given, especially towards his later early 2000 roles that he was given, Steven Seagal.
Yeah,
But
like
in this movie, he did try. You could tell that he was trying, but still, yeah, it was only a slight notch above the movies that he was making just a few years previous was that were considered terrible.
now I will say I'm not, as I said before, I'm not a Steven Seagal fan, so I don't have a lot of history with the character. I know that, I mean, both my parents, for some reason, are big Steven Seagal fans. So growing up, we probably in our house owned not so much VHSs, but when DVDs were big, like when they were first coming out, I would be willing to bet my parents probably had 7 or 8, if not more, just random Steven Seagal movies. And I'm like, what is this? And my dad's like, oh, it's a great movie. No, no, it's not. I highly doubt that this is a great movie.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
I don't think he does very good. I honestly think he has the worst performance out of anybody in this movie.
yeah, I'd have to agree. I couldn't name a worse performance.
Maybe one of the random side cops, but those guys are all in it so little that
Yeah, they're
they
like
don't
glorified.
matter. I'll tell you
Exactly.
who I will tell you who did a great job in this movie is fucking DMX. R.I.P.
Yeah, rest in peace. Yeah, he did pretty good. I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit later once we get into his character that I refuse to believe. But when it comes to his acting, yeah, it was good. But I knew he was a good actor because I watched Belly, which I think came out before this.
Fuck his
He was
belly.
he was amazing in Belly.
The hell is belly?
It's like a movie it stars Nas. DMX is in it,
You've
and
lost me.
they're kind of like just drug dealers in New York.
Okay.
You never even heard of Belly?
No.
You're gonna get roasted in the comments, bro. I'm telling you, that's all I'm saying.
I, no, I'm kind of blown away by this. I'm gonna
It's
have to.
like you ever heard of like Paid in Full? I gotta I
I
gotta I gotta I gotta I gotta school you on these black gangster drug movies, man, that are actually really good. Belly is considered one of the best of those movies that come out of the 90s. And it's co-starring DMX. He's one of the leads. He's just a savage. He's like his character is like his real life self, like just that raw and in your face. But it's very
does he bark?
no, maybe I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in so long, but yeah, I knew that he had good screen presence, charm, and charisma from watching that movie. I know he could play a good,
I
you
mean,
know,
you can tell he has that charm and charisma just by if you've ever seen him, even in like a music video or like he just commands the screen.
for sure. Yeah,
But
and he,
I really liked his character in this movie. But it's yeah, because basically you first see him and he's doing a drug deal of heroin that Seagal kind of interrupts it and gets into a little bit of a shootout, and that's where you're first introduced to him, and as well as TK, played by Anthony Anderson, who I love
yeah.
in this movie as well. I like Anthony Anderson in everything pretty much.
And this was early 2000s Anthony Anderson when he was like almost every sidekick that for some reason got his ass beat,
And
especially in this
feel
in this one.
I feel he was pretty unknown at this time,
Well,
like just kind of up and coming.
he was in a bunch of he had a lot of small roles in a bunch of movies. Like he was in this one, he was in Romeo Must Die. He had he was in Barbershop.
Yep.
There's a couple other ones that I'm not thinking of right now.
The
But yeah,
thing, well,
he was sprinkled
I don't
in a
know if
lot of
I don't know if I would count Barbershop only because I've always looked at that movie as more of an ensemble cast. So I feel like he wouldn't stick out nearly as much.
no, he
But
wasn't
like
into that.
this movie and Romeo Must Die, I remember him in. Um and I was gonna say actually about DMX, the only other movie that I think I've ever seen him in other than this was Cradle to the Grave.
Oh yeah, Cradle to the Grave.
That's another
I
really good
forgot
one.
that one too. I forget about that one because it's like that one, Romeo Must Die and Exit Wounds are like the same movie.
Pretty much.
So it's
And
like sometimes you forget about the one because you
isn't Romeo
you're
Must
thinking,
Die and Cradle to the Grave Jet Li?
yeah, they both have DMX in it.
No, DMX is in Romeo Must Die, is he?
Yeah, he's in it for like he's like a cameo almost. He's the
Oh,
owner of the
okay.
club,
Yes, okay.
but yeah. So I get confused sometimes because all these movies are basically the same movie.
Yeah. No, the whole plot of this movie basically it goes by pretty quick because when Boyd interrupts this drug deal, you find out Latrell Walker, who's DMX's character, he gets away. And you find out that the guy who's doing the drug deal is well, he says that he's undercover. You later find out, and not by much later, by like maybe 5 minutes, that he's actually dirty. Montini is
Yeah.
his name. Like you would think that the whole him being dirty would be kind of strung out a little bit. No, it's like 5-10 minutes later.
Nah, nah, we ain't got that. We got that time.
But so after they do this, and it's kind of like, oh, you're undercover. Oh, I'm sorry. Like I didn't mean to interrupt your bus, whatever. I don't know if it's the very next scene, but I think it's the next time you come back to Seagal is when they're in the fucking they're in the locker room of the police precinct, and they're playing shot for shot with a fucking stun gun.
Because that's what men do.
Like what is going on with that scene?
Toxic masculinity at its finest.
Oh my, you took the words right out of my mouth.
It was completely unnecessary. But I guess it just establishes that some of these guys are not okay with Steven Seagal's character being there or something. Because doesn't the Gladiator guy crank?
Gladiator guy?
I'm calling him Gladiator Man.
What,
Or
Useldinger?
yeah, the big dude, the biggest guy. Look like American Gladiator.
I love his name is fucking Useldinger.
Right? Looks like a Oozledinger. Yeah, you could tell he was not a fan of Steven Seagal because he like,
Oh, right away you could tell.
yeah, he kind of cranks the taser up a little bit too much there, and
Yeah, because it's like, oh, I can do however high, and he fucking like puts it over the red mark, and it's like, no, we're gonna see if you can take full blast.
exactly.
It's like, oh, that could kill somebody, but okay, here we go. But I love this scene because I love the entrance of Michael Jai White.
Dude,
When he just fucking hooks the guy's arm as he's going to punch
I
him.
I consider that as iconic as the Dylan, you son of a bitch handshake in Predator. It's right up there because it's
He,
muscle on muscle contact.
and what I like so much is when he does it, Michael Jai White isn't even he's looking like away from the guy. And then he like just turns his eyes towards him and he's like, I think that's enough. And it's like I don't know what it is about the way he I don't know what it is about that, but it looks so much more effective doing it that way. I don't know why.
Yeah, it was probably Michael Jai White's. He probably told them to do it that way, just because he's such an established martial artist. He probably thought that would be the best shot doing it with
Dude,
that approach.
he should have had a bigger career.
Yeah, but he wasn't the strongest actor. I think that was his biggest downfall. Is he just wasn't strong, man. He still isn't as strong an actor. But I do have a movie that you haven't seen that is one of his best. It's called Blood and Bone.
Okay.
That if you're a Michael Jai White fan, that movie is a must watch. It's one of his best.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out one of these days. But yeah, I really like him in this movie, and
Oh yeah.
I even like the guy who ends up being becoming Boyd, who's Seagal's character, becoming his partner. George Clark is the character. Isaiah Washington plays him.
The infamous Isaiah Washington, who is also in Romeo Must Die.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked him in this movie. I thought just because he's always playing a villainous role. I thought he was going to be one of the corrupted cops, but you know, he no, he played true as a good character, like a good man, and which was rare for him and during this time. He was always playing some type of bad role.
Yeah.
So
See,
it was really refreshing.
I know him mainly from, if anybody's watched the YA CW show The 100. I know
Okay.
him mainly from that. And
Yeah.
I thought he was really good in that show as well. But yeah, the first thing I thought of, because like I say, The 100 is a much newer property. So when he came on screen, I was like, oh my God, he looks young. It might
And he,
not immediately being like, well, yeah, it was 20 some years ago. Of course he does.
and he unfortunately he has one of the most embarrassing horror movie deaths of all time
What's
in
that?
Ghost Ship. It's you want me to spoil Ghost Ship? How he dies in Ghost Ship?
I've never seen Ghost Ship.
Okay, throughout the movie in Ghost Ship, he's a married man. They get stuck on this ghost ship, and ghosts are trying to kill people, whatever.
Does a
But
ghost
throughout the
fuck him to death?
close, he throughout the movie he claims that he's married, he's faithful, whatever. But the moment he sees a sexy ghost, this motherfucker pulls his pants like in the he's about to pull his pants down and have sex with this ghost, but the ghost tricks him, and he ends up falling, like going through the ghost and falling down, I guess like a shaft, and like onto some
Fuck.
sharp objects and
What the
impaling himself.
fuck?
It's actually it's terrible, but it's one of those you have to see to believe.
Yeah, that's a movie that I've never actually sat down and watched. I've heard about it a lot, and I remember when it came out, but I've just never watched it.
Yeah, it's one of those early 2000 movies. A lot of those movies kind of blend together, but this one was one of those cult following after it didn't do so well type movies.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's probably one of his first roles. Your boy Carl Urban.
Hell yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That alone would make me want to give it a watch.
Yeah, it's a decent horror movie. With one of the with literally the best opening in a horror movie I've ever seen.
Okay. I'll definitely, like I said, I'll definitely give that a watch
Yeah.
in time. I've got such a massive list of things that I want
Your
to
list
watch,
is long as
whether
shit.
movies or TV, whatever it is. But what did you think of the scene where they go to buy the car?
Ugh. I it was interesting, but like, because when I watched it when I was younger, I thought it was so cool.
What about it did you
But
think
as
was
an
cool?
just going into the store, you know what I mean, and buying it after somebody profiled you thinking you didn't have it. Like I just thought that whole just the way they set it up was like, that's cool. And when you're a teenage boy,
Yeah.
that would be cool. But seeing it as adult, I'd be like, okay, I have some
Little
questions.
unrealistic. Well, so
I
yeah,
have questions.
when I remember when well, I will say during this rewatch, I noticed something, and when they walk in, I think he looks at a Bentley, and he's like, "Oh, what do you think of that?" And Anthony Anderson goes, "Yeah, if you puffy," and I went, "Oh, he was still puffy at this time."
Yeah.
Now, if there are any younger listeners out there, the man you know as Diddy or P Diddy used to be known as Puffy or Puff Daddy when we were younger. And when I heard that, I went, "Oh, it's like time traveling."
Instantly dates the movie for sure.
That is one thing it does. It instantly dates this movie to the early 2000s. But there is a
Absolutely.
line that Anthony Anderson, I like when he puts
when he's playing the music and he's yelling at the older woman looking at the card. Oh, Miss Johnson shaking her ass. This whole scene with Anthony Anderson has me cracking up the whole time. And if I remember nothing of this movie, there are two quotes from him. One is in this scene and one is later that I would never forget. And when they tell him, they look at, I think it's a Ferrari that they end up buying. And he says the car is 285 and he goes, 285, it better suck and fuck me for 285. I don't know why. I mean, probably because I was 13 years old. I thought that was the funniest fucking line that I might have ever heard in a movie. And I just and then now when I'm watching the scene now, I still got a chuckle out of it, but like you say, the scene is completely different when you're an adult because they pay for the car in cash and then immediately
Well,
drive it out of the showroom.
exactly. The guy didn't even count the money. They just gave him cash. They didn't even see that it was actual money in there. They just, or at the very least, it could have just been money wrapped or fake money wrapped around with, one bill that was real.
Well, and
so there was no paperwork. There's no paperwork at all. It doesn't have to be signed.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. As adults you and I have both purchased cars in our lives, there's a waiting period. You have to get licensing, you have to get insurance, you have to get plates, you have to do all the paperwork. Like,
not if you have a sack full of money.
Apparently, because I'm pretty sure even when the camera shows them driving away and you see the back of the car, I'm pretty sure there's a license plate on that car already.
Of course. But there's, and just the fact that they were he revved it up in the store. Like, I understand the worker, the African American worker, getting upset at that moment. I didn't when I was a teenager watching this movie. I didn't really see that point of view.
Upset what, when they drive away?
No, when they turn the engine on of the car.
Oh yeah.
Inside. You don't do that.
No, never.
You don't. And the fact that I need to know if DMX knew that.
Yes, I was just going to say that.
Did he know him? Because it seemed like he knew him. They were giving each other's looks like maybe they knew each other. I just don't know. I just don't know what's going on with that guy and why he was looking the way he was looking in that whole scene.
I have thought that for years because I'm like, you're right. They're giving looks to one another. He just looks at the guy and kind of gives him a nod, and somehow the guy has the key right there with him. Like, it was almost like he knew they were coming in or something. He wouldn't just randomly have the key to every vehicle in the showroom
on his person.
Yeah, like that doesn't make any sense.
It does because the scene seems like it was written by a teenager who didn't know how buying a car worked.
Yeah, like it's just like you're going to the store to buy. Yeah, like they thought they were just going to the store to buy a pair of shoes or a bike or something.
Just go in there with
walk
money
out with it.
You buy it, right? That's right. That's how it works.
Yeah, that was a really weird scene.
Yeah. It was the comedic side of it. I did appreciate. It was funny. But that's not how buying cars works, sir.
Yeah, not even a little bit.
But let's go with it. We're just gonna go with it. Unfortunately, you have to keep that in your head as you're going through this movie.
Well, one of the other things that I don't understand is with the way this was written is once Boyd and Clark have become partners, once they become, so Boyd lives on a houseboat, number one, which I don't think is a very good idea in Detroit because, well, we live somewhat near Detroit in Canada, and it gets fucking cold here. So I wouldn't want to be living on the river in a houseboat in December or January. Thank you.
Yeah, he better have a, a another home somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how that was one. I didn't even think of that as a kid, but now as an adult, I went, I don't think you could have a houseboat in this area because it gets too fucking cold in the winter. And it's not like he's taking his boat down to Florida like some people do for the winter because he's a cop. He can't take 6 months off.
No.
But it's this guy, so Isaiah Washington's character, Clark, literally just goes into this man's house in the morning to like wake him up to go to work. And he's surprised when the guy pulls a gun on him. It's like, what did you think was going to happen? And all I could think of was the writer, like, do you not understand? I feel like police officers, when they're off duty, are some of the most edgy, paranoid people only because of what they go through on a daily basis, especially this guy in this movie. He's been threatened countless times. He's been in shootouts, all this stuff. And this guy's just waltzing into his house at like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning and shaking him awake.
Yeah, probably not the best idea.
I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to get shot.
Especially a cop that has known anger issues and is known for being unhinged. Yeah, that's something you don't just roll up on. Especially
Yeah, that was a really interesting. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking at it going, well, I don't. So the writers of this, like again, I don't know if that was taken out of the book. I don't know if the writers kind of extrapolated something from the book, or they just came about that, or came up with that on their own. I'm really not sure, but I was like, that whole scene doesn't make any sense.
No, very little.
But then once the two of them are partnered together. Now, I will say this movie is, and I talked to you about this before, this movie is supposed to take place in Detroit. There are many obvious notions or many obvious things in the film where you can see it's clearly not filmed in Detroit. I don't know if you noticed it, but when the two of them are in uniform and they're doing their patrol, whatever, at one point you see the cop car from the outside. In the distance, you can see a giant sign that says Skydome, which obviously now is the Rogers Center in Toronto. And I'm like, this is 2001. We had we had CGI. Even in the early 90s, we had basic CGI. You could cover that sign with anything. No, they just didn't bother.
Yeah, I mean the editor definitely missed that one.
And then later in the movie, there's a fucking Tim Hortons.
I mean,
now if you, any of our American listeners, if you don't know what that is, yeah, but not in 2001.
Probably not.
For any of our American listeners or anywhere else in the world, in Canada, our big coffee shop is Tim Hortons, and it's a very Canadian thing. And I don't think they started expanding outside of Canada until maybe the mid-aughts, maybe even into 2010. That, I could be wrong, but I've never heard of one outside of Canada until at least around that time. So when first the Skydome thing, and then later in the movie during one of the car chases, I was like, oh, Tim Hortons. That's not in the States.
Yeah. No,
I love some of those glaring mistakes that they don't even, whether or not they noticed it. If they noticed it, they just said fuck it and just leave it and be like, I hope nobody catches that. Or they didn't notice it, and if they didn't notice it, they need to hire some better editors.
Yeah, I think if you're a Canadian, you'll probably notice it a lot more than Americans. That's probably what they were banking on.
Probably, and also like I don't know if I noticed the Sky Dome thing before. I don't think I noticed the Tim Hortons thing until this rewatch. So because it is in the background, and I think I saw it because I was trying to watch this with a bit more of a critical eye for the podcast, but it was just something that really stuck out to me.
Yeah. No, I don't. Things like that stick out to me too in other movies, especially when they say they're supposed to be somewhere when they're clearly not.
Yeah. From there we end up with one of my favorite scenes, I guess. Yeah, is this whole nightclub fight that Seagal gets in with the, I guess, they're bouncers, I guess, bodyguards of Anthony Anderson. And I I don't know why this choice was made, but when Anthony Anderson has one of his henchmen or bodyguards, whatever you want to call them, he says, "Oh, say hello to this," and he calls him a sumo, and then the camera pans to the guy, and I'm like, he is not even close to Japanese. He is Polynesian or Samoan or like he is not Japan. Why are you calling him a sumo? He's not even. And it's like if it's because he's a big guy, he's not. He's a muscular guy. He is not what a sumo wrestler would look like.
My theory is that he watched Street Fighter and he saw E Honda was played by a Samoan. So he just figured that all sumos, or maybe he thought he was that character. I don't
God,
know.
I hope that's not true because that is so racist.
No. No, yeah. I just thought I didn't really notice that till you said it, but that's I'm
The
we're gonna just
the
go
oth-
with it. We're just gonna
the
go with
other
it.
one of the other negative things about this movie that I couldn't get past was the sound effects, the Foley work during these fights.
Oh yeah. The
Like
sound effects throughout this movie are wild.
well, it's like every punch or kick, it's like that.
Yeah.
It sounds so bad and so stupid. It's like what you would hear. I'm pretty sure Three Ninjas had better Foley work when it came to stuff like that.
I think what inspired this movie, especially with the choreography, is The Matrix. Because this movie is coming hot off of The Matrix, right?
You know what? Now that you say that, The Matrix has those same sound effects.
So Matrix came out what, 99?
99.
When
So this
2001.
would have been filmed in 2000, right after it.
So I think that, and when The Matrix dropped, so many people try to copy what made that movie such a successful thing at the time very quickly. Like
You know
there were
what?
knockoffs of that movie came out quickly after it came out.
I never even connected that, but you're right. Those exact same sound effects appear in every fight in The Matrix. Wow.
Oh yeah. It's the
That's
Matrix
really
effect, man.
that's really upsetting because they sound so bad, which means they would sound just as bad in The Matrix. Oh God, that hurts my brain.
But I think it's supposed to sound fake because it's the Matrix, right? It's supposed to be fake. I think that's probably what they were going for.
Yeah, that would make sense, but this is in real world, so this is just
Exactly.
stupid.
Exactly. Which is, it adds to the absurdity of this movie, but still entertaining. It's not how fight sounds work, in the real world, but it's entertaining, man. Those
It can be.
it can be, for sure.
What I'll tell you is entertaining is when they bring Latrell to view the cops' operation, and you find out that fucking Michael Jai White, surprise, surprise, he's the bad guy. And they drop that that twist like maybe 40 minutes into the movie. I was like,
Oh, was that supposed to be a twist?
Yes.
That's supposed to be a twist?
Yes.
Mm.
Well, and
Like you
especially
weren't supposed to figure that out the moment he kind of came on screen that he
well,
was.
even earlier in the movie when the cops are at the bar discussing like the best athlete. He shows up spouting that Muhammad Ali is the best athlete and all that, but they portray him as being like almost like better than everybody else because they're all drinking and he's drinking a bottle of fucking water at a bar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like he's portrayed as this not holier than thou, but like this more like moral person, more upstanding, like almost better than the rest of them. And then especially when they do, it's definitely supposed to be a reveal because they do the whole like James Bond where he spins around in the chair and then he has that
Yeah.
quote and then he has that quote which I think he was so excited he got to say when he says the greatest trick the devil pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Like he just seems so happy in that scene where he's like, I can't believe I get to do this kind of exposition and I get to be the reveal and
Oh yeah, he probably thought he nailed that line. That's why he's so happy with himself in that
I,
scene. Like
I
I
will
nailed
say
this.
when they show that or they explain that the heroin is like t-shirts dipped in a solution and then dried and then you extract it later. I was like, if that actually were to work, that's a really ingenious way of doing something like this.
But like, wouldn't the fucking dog still smell it?
No, I guess not. He says that he even says dogs can't even smell it. Which
Uh,
I agree. I was like,
I don't
I'm gonna
know,
I'm gonna
man. I
call
don't know
bullshit
about
on that.
that. I don't know about that, man.
Yeah, I'd be calling bullshit on that.
It just seems like a lot of work for something that
For
yeah,
five
it just
million bucks.
yeah, I don't know. It's something about it just seems really absurd and completely unnecessary. I just feel like there would have been a better way to do it, but this is the way they chose.
No, what I find to be absurd is the fact that then Boyd meets up. He actually meets up with Latrell. Like it's some kind of fight. I forget how they actually meet up with one another. But he basically says like, "Come on, I'll show you my operation." Like,
I think Steven Skull just rolls up on him and attacks him. They have like a little fight,
yeah, that makes sense. And he's like,
and
"Oh,
then
I'll show you,"
it's like a
because that's when
stalemate.
yeah. But he's like, I'll show you how what my operation looks like." And they go to his apartment or his wherever he lives, and you find out that he's been working with Eva Mendes, who you saw briefly earlier in the movie. Um, and he's actually got hidden cameras on all these meetings. He knows all these guys are cops, and he wants to expose these dirty cops because they framed his brother and put him in prison. And what I found completely ridiculous about this is when they're showing some of these hidden camera things, like the one specifically is they show the meeting with Michael Jai White, and the camera is worn by DMX. It's on his body, whether it's his jacket, his whatever it is. In that scene, Michael Jai White is supposed to be talking directly to DMX. He is not looking at the camera where it is supposed to be the hidden one. He's looking off to the side as if he's talking to somebody else. And I'm like, if you're having that continuity of it's supposed to be a hidden camera on his person, Michael Jai White should be looking directly at camera like he's breaking the fourth wall. I thought that was a really big continuity error, and it's something that I've never noticed before until this rewatch when I was again trying to watch it with a critical eye.
Yeah, I feel like somebody was sleeping on the job.
The best would have been if they did it like other movies where it's almost like security footage, and yet the security footage is just the exact scene that we just saw.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's literally my favorite trope. When they catch, yeah, it's either video footage or like just a picture or something, and it's
And
like,
somehow it's like, no, that's what that's what the guy shooting the movie shot. The security camera would be up in
right?
the corner.
How did you get that angle? It, yeah, we, yeah, it's so stupid, but I appreciate it when I see it.
Yeah. And this is the scene that I was referencing earlier, that it's actually something that Anthony Anderson says that I have quoted 1,000 times. Because so they're watching this stuff, and he kind of comes in, and him and Seagal's character have had a run in earlier. He actually stole the grill off his truck because he handcuffed him to it. But he comes in and he's kind of mouthing off a little bit, and DMX says, "Why don't you go get us a drink?" And he's like, just because he says something, just because I own a bar doesn't mean I'm on the love boat or something. And DMX is like, go get us a drink. And Anthony Anderson puts on this weird accent and he goes, yes, sir. Perhaps go get some for Mr. Charlie too. I have quoted that 1 billion times since seeing this movie. I don't know why. It's just something that I've always thought was really amusing. And I've used it, even if I just say it to myself in my head because I think it's funny. Yes, I do. I do those things sometimes. But it's that line has always stuck with me, and even just watching it last night, it made me chuckle again.
Yeah, no, I have to rewatch it to see him do that. It must have been an impression of somebody or something.
I think because now I'm too young to have ever watched The Love Boat unless it was in syndication, and I just never did. So I think he might be imitating the bartender Isaac from The Love Boat, but I'm not
Okay.
100% sure.
It's possible. I remember watching a couple episodes of that show, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I
But yeah,
mean, basically after he finds out about this, it's like full out war. He brings the information to Joe Hennessy, his commander, and he basically on a parking garage. And as he's telling her like these cops are dirty, she's like, "No, there's no way that could be happening." And then these cops just fucking open fire on her car, like out in the open, fully automatic. They've got like RPGs.
yeah, they wanted some people dead.
Like, good God. And then this chase through what is supposed to be downtown Detroit. And her death is brutal.
Dude, it's seeing this death scene the first time stuck with me and has continued to stick with me only because it's so effective and so out of nowhere. Because you
Yeah,
think, because in most action movies, say this was a more typical one, uh, he would have hooked up with her, and you know the movie was kind of hinting towards that, and the fact that they just took her out so randomly in such a brutal, effective looking shot way.
it did. It looked
Just
really, really well
just
done.
stuck with me. It definitely will continue to stick with me, especially the more and more I drive.
Yeah, because I mean, I forget because I think it's just she goes around a corner and I think his door is ripped off or something, and he goes out the door, so he's fine. But she hits, I think it's a construction vehicle, and her airbag doesn't go off, and she is propelled. And you see the shot outside the front windshield of the car. You can see her whole side of her face and like upper body collide with this windshield. And
Yeah,
then the next
before
scene is
what's why she crashed into it is because she was chasing a guy, and that car out of nowhere turned to like the left But she didn't notice that I think it was like a wall or something, whatever she crashed into,
I thought it might have been like the blade of a bulldozer or something like that.
something like that. But whatever she crashed into, she didn't have enough time to brake because of the car that she was chasing in front of her turned. So it was like the fact that you saw that in real time in her perspective was like crazy. And then the effect of her crashing into the car, the windshield was
Yeah,
insane.
and then you just see he looks because he's still kind of like right next to the vehicle, and the passenger door is no longer there. So he looks in, and you can just see her slumped over the steering wheel, just covered in blood, and it's like you don't even need evidence. It's like she's clearly dead. Like, and it's brutal.
Yeah, yeah, very very brutal, very effective, and yeah, just surprising, which is good. It kind of changes it up when it comes to an action movie because that normally doesn't really happen to the I guess the potential love interest.
Yeah, even if they wouldn't have gotten together, it would have been that kind of seemed like the scene where like they go on a chase and they don't get him, but then they go back and regroup and then they go on their final assault and it's like, nope, she didn't make it. That just
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean after this it's he kind of says like I really need to get so he calls his former commander who's played by Bruce McGill, who is another actor that I'm a big fan of. Ever since his younger days playing D-Day in Animal House when he was much younger and much thinner.
Okay.
But I've always liked him as an actor, and he says to him like, "You always used to tell me that I don't think. Well, I'm thinking now, and I need some fucking help." Because he's like, "This is what's going down, and they need to be stopped, taken care of, like the whole deal." And he shows up just as DMX and Anthony Anderson are there doing this last buy. I think it's $5 million buy, and of course Seagal and this guy show up because he's like I didn't know who else to trust, so he's like I just came by myself. I'm here to help you, and they go in and this is another. I remember this reveal when I was in theater. I did not see this coming whatsoever, but as an adult looking at it, it's kind of not obvious, but I was able to kind of piece together like how you could kind of see it, and you find out, oh, Bruce McGill is actually dirty as well. Like this goes all the way to the fucking top, apparently.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah, a
you
whole
see
lot
that
of
coming?
no, but I know people who did because they're familiar with the actor's uh work, and he kind of always, I mean, he does play a villainous role
He's good at it. He has that kind of
in his in previous roles. So I didn't, but I know there's been people who did kind of see it coming.
okay. Yeah, and this just like this whole scene just kind of kicks off the final climax, the big battle that they have, and every like Seagal's partner shows up along with the who apparently I think is the chief of police is Bill Duke. And I think it's so funny because he shows up in a fucking it looks like he's wearing a sweatsuit with a toque or a winter hat and a bulletproof vest. Like he looks like he just rolled out of bed and was like, all right, let's go. Let's go on this
Yeah,
full out assault.
literally, he didn't put the vest on. That's what he goes to bed with. He goes to bed with his bulletproof vest. He just put the hat on.
Yeah. And I like that he ends up being the one to kill Bruce McGill. And I love this made me
His
feel
one-liner.
like that made it feel like an 80s action movie. After he kills him and he's like, "You're fired." I was like, "Oh." Dude's a fucking
Yeah.
badass.
Yeah, he's I mean, yeah, he's part of the Predator cast, so he'll always be goated in the realm of action for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and basically you get all the minor cops kind of all get killed, and then you have the two showdowns. You have Montini and DMX, and then you have Michael Jai White and Seagal, and
Yeah.
it's just a kind of back and forth between the two, and I like I like the trick that DMX does, where he takes his belt and ties it around the trigger of the gun, and then he kind of throws the gun up and yanks on the belt, and it pulls the trigger of the shotgun.
That is so stupid.
It wouldn't. I don't think it would ever
So
work, but I thought it looked kind of
stupid.
cool.
It would never work. That
No,
would never, ever, ever work.
no,
It's
because
cool looking at
you're
it,
pulling down on the belt, and you need to pull backwards on the trigger. It wouldn't work at all.
which is exactly. But isn't
But
and
for
I
visual needs, it looks kind of cool.
yeah, it shows that DMX is smart.
Well, he is smart. They say early in the movie he's like a .com genius billionaire.
Okay. I
So
literally wrote a couple things in my notes. Well, quite a few, but this is a string of no's that I have. I put DMX a tech genius. No.
no way.
There's a scene where uh Steven Seagal's character jumps over a car trying to run him over.
No way.
No. And then the third one is DMX killing a guy with a belt and shotgun. No. No.
I do have a question. When did Amazon start? Because is there any way that Jeff Bezos was watching this movie and went, "Hey," because they talk about DMX's character and they say he started a website called 999.com or something, anything you want under $10. I'm sorry, but that sounds a lot like Amazon.
I believe Amazon was like early 90s, and then when they started, it was all book shit. But
Okay.
it could have planted the seed. Who knows?
Jeff
It could have
Bezos is
planted the
watching
seed.
Jeff Bezos watching Exit Wounds.
Maybe he owes all of his success to Exit Wounds.
Could you imagine? He'd
That'd be
never
great.
admit it. If anybody had that idea, they'd never admit it.
No.
Yeah, I got drunk and watched this Steven Seagal DMX movie, and I came up with an idea that made me a billionaire.
Yeah, that sounds great though.
Oh, it does. But this is the part of the movie that we were talking about earlier, where you
Oh
have.
my god. Oh my god.
And I love that it's perpetuated by Seagal walks into the room and just shoots off a fire extinguisher. So there's like mist and smoke everywhere. And they
Oh, it got that
decide to
ambiance. Need that ambiance.
they decide to grab these like fabric cutter blades that are like 3.5 feet long. And we have a good old fashioned fucking sword fight on our hands.
With non-traditional swords, yet when they clash,
They look
these
like swords.
but when you hear them clash, it sounds like sharpened katana blades.
Dude, they look like supersized katanas because they've got that curve to them, but they're gigantic.
Yeah, but it's funny because when they're clashing, they sound like
They sound like swords. It doesn't make any
samurai
sense.
swords, man. It's like that's not what they would sound like.
No, it would just
But
sound like
okay,
like
all
steel on
right,
steel.
exactly. But okay, hey,
But this is the scene where you get that badass fucking flip by Michael Jai White
it
with
was
a
a
sword.
backwards
The
flip,
swords connect.
uppercut, sword attack.
It was weird.
it was completely unconventional.
but it looked fucking badass.
Did it though?
It it did. That was a
Did it look badass?
I thought it looked great. That was a trailer moment, and I was like, "Yep, I'll accept it."
Maybe in the early 2000s that looked badass. As an adult, it doesn't. I, I don't know what to think of it.
I think with this scene, my nostalgia really kicked in, and I was like, "Nope, I'm here for it. Just give it all to me."
I just think it's fucking ridiculous. Because there's another, yeah, the wire work is insane. Like, there's like this one, and then there's a scene earlier in the movie where Steve Seagal does this like Matrix, like capoeira type kick, which
Okay,
completely,
I know.
it's
I think I
one
know
of,
what you're talking about.
yeah, it's just one of these moments. It just took me out of the movie for a second, just because it was so absurd.
I mean, a
And
lot of what Seagal does in this movie and in most
with
movies
my,
is
yeah,
absurd.
yeah, it is just with my rewatching those specific moments. It just took me out because it was in an already absurd movie. It was that moment was like cranked to 11.
Yeah.
I was like, I can nah, okay, I'm out first for a split second. But it's Michael Jai White. I'll always give him respect.
But then you've got immediately after that, he takes the briefcase of like, because I think they only had half the money, and he goes to the roof, and there's a police helicopter there to take him away, and like a typical action movie, they're not going to land on the roof and pick him up. No, he's got to
Nope.
climb up this rope or chain ladder while the helicopter's trying to take off. And I love that all Seagal has to do is hang on the ladder and hook it to something.
Yeah, of
And
course.
this would cause the helicopter to not be able to fly. But the sheer force of it, I don't know if it comes on. I don't remember if it comes unhooked or if the chains just break. But Michael Jai White, he falls and is impaled on this pipe right through the chest.
Really slowly too.
It is. There is a lot of low key slow motion in this movie
Yeah.
that I didn't notice when I first watched it, but I noticed a lot of it on this rewatch. I also noticed there's a lot of close-ups on people's faces to try and make things sound dramatic, and it just doesn't work.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that.
But that's his end, and then we cut back to the fight with DMX and Montini, which I love the one scene where he just grabs him by the legs and lifts him straight up and his head hits the sprinkler, and that causes the sprinklers to turn on,
Yeah.
which is a very needed effect because the way he defeats him is DMX in this scene, like he is through a lot of the movie, is wearing a leather jacket because it's the early 2000s.
Yeah, a lot of leather.
And the way
Okay.
he does it is this guy tries to like
Impale him.
well it's like he's got his hand on the back of his neck and his forearm and he's gonna throw him almost like an Irish whip in wrestling is what it looks like. And all DMX does is slip his arm out out the sleeve out the sleeve of the coat, and the guy's momentum carries him forward, and he's impaled through the throat from this. I don't know if it's a hook or a giant nail sticking out of the wall.
It's a nail. Regardless, it was a super sorry ass death. It was such a sorry ass death, man.
But it was very effective.
It was effective. Definitely. And I guess they had to wrap things up quick. So they just had to, kill these bad guys off ASAP. But hey, they did it. It was effective. And again, didn't they use the slow motion in that scene too? Those final seconds.
Oh, they certainly did.
So, yeah, the slow motion was used effectively in those specific moments.
I don't know if I'd say effectively.
Well, effective because it's in slow motion and it. I don't know. For me, it worked.
I think the last note that I have written here is after this, all the fight kind of ends. I think it's after it ends. Bill Duke references, he says that he was in Vietnam. Is that a Predator reference?
It might have been. It could have been.
I'm going to take it like it was.
For
Because
sure.
as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, I see what you did there, whether you meant it or not.
Yeah. Maybe he had a twin brother who they both served in one was in Predator.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the end of the movie. They defeat the corrupted cops, and Bill Duke ends up telling DMX that he kind of figured out what was going on and had his brother somehow just had his brother released. No evidence, just released.
Like the morning, when did he do that? Was it before he went and because it's the morning after, right? Nobody left anywhere. They were still in the same area.
I believe so.
So he did all this before he went there in
He
the
must
first
have.
place. Okay.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
It is what it is.
But that's all the notes that I have. I think that kind of wraps it up for this, unless there's something else you wanted to discuss.
I just wanted to mention the credit thing that they had.
Oh yeah.
A little improv back and forth between Tom Arnold, Anthony Anderson's character. I thought
It was funny, but
it was funny. I think it won. I don't know because they did it in this one, and then I think they did it in Romeo Must Die. It was another scene like this in another one of these type of movies.
I
I
don't
think,
remember. I don't remember that movie nearly as well as I do this one, so I'm not sure about that.
yeah, I think that one did it better or more effectively than this one. But it's still, I got some chuckles out of it.
Oh yeah, I got some chuckles as well. I mean, it happens because he's a big fan of his, and after the shootout, he's like, "Oh, I got shot. Would you guys film my surgery for your show?" And then the next scene is like, "Oh, our new co-host," and it's like, "Wait, what?" And then there's just
Exactly.
like 3 or 4 minutes of the two of them bantering about the most random stuff that would get any show on any cable network canceled immediately.
Oh yeah.
But
Very
you're
funny.
right. I did get a few chuckles out of it.
Yeah. That's pretty much what the only thing I wanted to add to that ending there.
Okay, well, why don't we move on to closing thoughts and our ratings for this movie? If you wanna take that away.
Yeah. No, when I first watched this movie, I had a lot of fun with it. Um I was a teenager at the time, so I forgave a lot of the or didn't really pay attention to a lot of the subtlety, fine details of this movie. Uh After my rewatch, I still enjoyed it quite a bit. I think it's just a fun overall ride. Um, when it comes to Steve Seagal's filmography, I think, especially towards the older era of his movies, I think it's one of the best. Um, if you are a fan of, you know, early 2000 or just action movies in general, uh, I definitely recommend this movie. Um, it's definitely you're going to question a lot of the logic in this for sure, but you're going to come out of it entertained, and you definitely will not feel like your time has been wasted.
And it's not a long movie. I think it only clocks in at like an hour and 35 minutes or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's today's standards. That's like nothing.
But that's a big plus for this movie, because if they would have made this movie and made it like 2.5 hours, it would have been a slog to get through.
It's been bad.
Hour 40 minutes, hour 41, sorry. Okay, what would you give it as a rating?
Ooh, I'd probably give it I'm floating at like a 6.5.
Okay. Yeah, that's I was right in that ballpark. I will say that I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. Maybe not as much as I did when I was 13, but it's still it's a fun ride. I do have my gripes with certain things. Most of those are Seagal based, but overall, I would say that this movie's got action. It's got some comedic moments, and I feel that there's enough here to justify sitting down and giving it a watch. I'd give it a light recommend to people who like action movies, but if you don't like action movies, this ain't gonna be the one for you, because there's not much else to it. And
No.
there's no real depth of story here. So I know several people who just action movies aren't their thing. So I know for sure that they wouldn't like this, because there's nothing else to kind of grasp on or kind of hang your hat on. That's all this really is, which I'm fine with, because I love dumb action movies that I can just kind of turn my brain off and be entertained for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And that's what this is. Like you said, it's got a very early 90s, 80s vibe to it through a lot of the movie and a lot of the action sequences, even though it was made in 2001. Um, but I'm right with you. I'm gonna give this a 6.5 out of 10. And if you've never seen it, give it a shot. I mean, like I say, it's not that long of a movie, so it's not like you're gonna waste that much time. And I think, like I said, if you like action movies, I think you'd enjoy it. But
Sure.
I think that's gonna do it for this episode of Geeked Out. And as always, give us a follow on our socials, which we are on Instagram, X, and Facebook. I will be posting those in the description of the episode in the show notes. And or you can you can shoot us an email. Our email is geekedoutpod@gmail.com. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We'd really appreciate it. As of right now, we have not yet discussed what we're going to be doing next week, but keep an eye on those socials, and I will update you within the next couple of days when we decide what we're going to do. And so until next time, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing, everybody. Take it easy.
Peace.